Good morning, everyone. I'm back to do another video, and I am using my little Peeps coaster that I made yesterday, Anyway, this morning I got in a little discussion with my husband about, being baited and having, fake bogus interviews and how I'm really tired of it. And I wouldn't be able to tell at the point, who is baiting me and who isn't, but I'm going to ask that people don't call me in for job interviews unless, of course, you are serious about hiring me. It is a form of harassment, and I have to protect myself, and I am tired of it. But I think it's really important for people who are interested in seeking out the right candidates to make sure that, you conduct your interviews in a way that is professional and doesn't create any sort of animosity, because some people inadvertently intimidate their candidates, and it's not a point of doing that. You're trying to look, if you're seriously looking to hire somebody, you want to make sure that they match what you're looking for. So, like, for example, this is how I structure my resumes. Now, I'm not saying I'm a resume guru. I think I make pretty good resumes. I've been complimented on them in the past. I have received some positive feedback about some of the changes that I could have made to my resume, because, when I started making resumes, things like LinkedIn wasn't, popular. These sort of professional websites where you can get additional information about candidates weren't around. So, I would say that my structure of my resume is perhaps a little outdated. One moment. I'm going to take this call. Maria speaking. Hello? 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 Anyway, strange, mysterious phone call. Anyway, so I wanted to talk a little bit more about resumes and, sorry about that interruption, about job interviews and constructing positive job interviews and looking for the right candidate. So, like, for example, if you print out, when I print out requisitions for jobs, like, for example, I see one that says, full charge bookkeeper, must have experience in AR, billing, AP, payroll, general ledger, and must be able to prepare financial reports. Then those are the things I'm going to highlight in the very beginning, where it has, like, the skills. I'm going to basically repeat the things that they're looking for, if, of course, I have those skills. And then I somehow incorporate it into the summary of the resume on each job. So I list them with bullet points saying, hey, for example, if they talk about AP, well, then I'm going to say that I process into either I process them or I audit them. Somehow or another, I'm going to relate the information that they are looking for. Now, if they're trying to be more specific, let's just say, for example, I'm applying for an accounts payable clerk position, then I would probably list that I do accounts payable, and I would describe the processes of the accounts payable, of how they're processed, whether that be three-way match, or, well, that's pretty much the standard. But, some companies are not organized, so, you can't get their employees to turn in their work. But you basically describe the things that you've done at the job. Now, what I've encountered during these job interviews, which I don't feel comfortable with, is being asked petty pop quizzes, that make me feel uncomfortable, and I feel as though it's a form of intimidation and a form of harassment. When you see my resume, for example, and somebody's looking for somebody with specific skills, they are highlighted on my resume, and so it's the employer's responsibility or the interviewer's responsibility to make sure that they fully review the resume, and then they determine whether they're going to bring that person in. Now, after 18 years, I'm going to tell you, I'm tired of taking tests, okay? And I do find it a little insulting, because accounting doesn't change. It doesn't change. If debits were debits back in 1930, they're still debits now. Now, I can understand taking tests on software programs. That makes sense. It makes sense to be tested on software programs because not everybody is proficient on certain software programs. Like, for example, a person who's worked with Math 90, but they haven't done it in 2 years. Maybe they might need to have a little bit more touched up, a touch-up, or what do you call it, a refresher course or something like that. That's understandable. And I can also understand, testing a person who's on the entry-level position because they just left either college or whatever, and now they need to know, are they ready for the workplace? Do they really retain all the information that they've learned? Then that's understandable as well. But when I get tested, and then you did a good job on the test, and then don't get a call, that is a form of harassment. But basically, an interviewer should know that the candidates that they select are what they're looking for. Otherwise, don't bring them in. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's pretty easy to understand. So if a person has, what I do is, like I said, I basically look at the requisition, and if they're asking for specific things, then I list what I have done. I mean, I'm not going to say I've done something if I haven't done it. Then that doesn't make any sense. But if they're looking for, like for example, a full charge bookkeeper, if they're not really descriptive, then I basically cover everything that a full charge bookkeeper would do. That would be AP, AR, it would be covering anything that relates to the general ledger and what gets placed on it. So that would be payroll, that we, of course, accounts reconciliations, all the reconciliations, making sure you talk about closing out the month, and getting reviewed. If you do get reviewed, sometimes it stops at depending on what level, I guess. If you were an accountant or something, like a CPA, then chances are you're reviewing the work as you go along. If it goes to another office or whatever, you talk about the whole process. I talk about the entire process of what the job entails. So anybody who brings me in for a job interview doesn't have to give me pop quizzes. They don't have to do that. And then once it's determined that this person has the skills, then you can call that person's references and say, hey, is this person eligible for rehire? And obviously I should be, because I've always left on good terms. So, it's these little things that kind of, after being harassed and then having people call me in for these kind of job interviews, it's nerve-wracking, because I feel like I feel intimidated, like somebody's trying to threaten my life, or they're just making a joke out of my life, and that's very uncomfortable. I mean, I have to live, I have to eat, and have a right to support myself. So when I hear these sort of things, I'm not comfortable with it. Also, as far as my Excel and my Microsoft Word, I have been doing those programs since 1997. So to be asked questions about that is a little silly. I have been using QuickBooks since 2001, and I'm very comfortable with just about every version. I don't really see too many differences in the versions. I mean, some of them have different capabilities, but the overall function of QuickBooks is very easy to understand. So, it's those little things, and they're also to me, it's a sign of my soccer. I get really sick when I see that it's like a trigger. It's kind of like, yeah, it is. It's a trigger. It triggers off negative emotions, and because I feel as though it's a threat to my life when I'm being called in for these bogus job interviews. And I have tried very, very, very hard to get people to assist me in getting the word out to stop the bogus interviews. I don't need it. I didn't do anything. I respected this town. I respected this community. I did everything I could to keep everything, to keep the greater good in mind, and to continually be harassed for something that I did as a favor to the community. This should be national news, and it should be. And, I feel as though I'm not getting the cooperation that I deserve when I have protected so many people. So, that's just one thing. So, going forward, and this is not just for me, it's for other targeted individuals, and it's for the sake of, having better job interviews anyway. I mean, there's more details that go into job interviews, okay? But obviously, the very first process is, of course, you need to determine whether you need another staff member, and then you write out things that you need them to do. Now, I usually list additional things on my resume, like, for example, if there's a full charge bookkeeper position, and I usually write in some of the additional things, the things that they're requesting if they're specific. And then I write in, like, for example, even if they don't list payroll, I do let them know that I have processed payroll, because I could either assist the person that processes payroll, or if they ever want to give me further opportunities, they know that I can handle it. So I give them a full view of what I'm capable of doing, and that's my purpose of how I structure my resumes. So anyway, this video is just for my own cleansing, and hopefully people will understand that, you know, the constant inappropriate interviews is a bit much. And like I said, you know, I've never been asked those questions, even when I was in an entry-level position. I don't recall being ever asked those questions. You know, my second accounting job that I received, that I had, you know, they could have tested me. I mean, that would have been understandable, but they didn't. They didn't test me. They just read my little resume that I had, and they verified my employment, and I started my job, you know. But to be, you know, asked questions, especially after, you know, I did take the 18 years, the statement of me working in accounting for 18 years off my resume, and I followed the advice of somebody who kind of gave me some really good pointers. I did take that information off, but I think that they could see that information either in the body of my cover letter, or just by looking at all the jobs that are listed on my resume. I mean, it makes sense, you know, and so I can't help but feel threatened and a little bit offended when these questions get asked. You know, I don't want to be the pop quizzes and job interviews. It should stop. So anyway, I just wanted to get that off of my my chest. I have been, like I said, I've been working in accounting for 18 years. Come April, I will be working in accounting for 19 years. That's a very, very long time. So after 19 years, I mean, who cares how I learned Excel? I mean, that to me is a very silly thing. Also, you know, I was also thinking, you know, how people don't think or realize how they don't see the relatedness of things. You know, like there's a lot of people who are still working who graduated from college in 1982. They might be a business major. Well, business and how things are actually processed, and how businesses are formulated, how they operate. I mean, everything about the business world from 1982 has changed from then and how it is now. I mean, how we do banking, for example, I always use this as an example. There was a time where, you know, if you had an account, let's say, for example, you had an account in California, and there's a branch of that same bank in another state, there was a time where you could withdraw money, but you couldn't actually deposit money. So there was like all these little weird, funny little quirky interstate banking laws and stuff. I mean, and that was the case back then. But now, you know, we transfer funds not only from state to state, but we transfer funds through different countries now, different currencies. I mean, and how we advertise and how we communicate. You know, everything about what you may have learned back in 1982 has changed. Does that mean that you should be retired and you shouldn't be working now? No, that's not the case. The case is that you have to keep up with the current times. So everything that you learned, like everything I've learned and everything you've learned, or somebody who learned their trade back in 1982 is now obsolete, okay? But that doesn't mean that you are no longer fit for the workplace. You just simply have to change with the times. So, like, you know, there was a time when fax machines was like the main form of communication. Well, we still use fax machines, but now we have email. You know, these little things are what matters, you know. And so that's not to say that, you know, education is not important. I'm just saying is, you know, everything I learned from back in the 90s is no longer the case. It's not, you know, even the software programs. I mean, I started off with WordPerfect and Lotus 1-2-3. Okay, and they still have those programs, but they're not the main ones that are being in office use. I would say the main ones are Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel. You know, does that mean that I'm no good for the workplace? No, that's not the case. The fact is, you know, when new things come out, it's your responsibility to keep up with them. So sometimes people might take an additional class. In my case, when I was working at one of my jobs to learn Excel, because they wanted, you know, Excel to be used by everybody, Sometimes employers have certain trainers that come in and implement, small training sessions so that you can learn a new skill and slowly but surely incorporate it. Some people learn Excel because they go to like a night school, or some people go to college. Some people, there's different ways of acquiring that. But the point is that no matter how you learn your skill, you have to make sure that when that skill becomes obsolete, you now know the new one. I used to save everything on a flash drive. Well, now people save things on clouds, and as long as you understand that and you know that and you're able to do that, then you're still fit for the workplace. But yeah, when people call me in, they don't have to question my ability to do the job, okay? When I worked at all my jobs, I did everything I was instructed to do. I never took any shortcuts. So that shouldn't even be an issue. And like I said, I'm fully capable of doing my job. And I just want to make sure that, I want this whole issue to stop, because it's too much stress, and nobody deserves to go through it. And I certainly don't, because I have done everything I could to protect it. This really should be national news, and it should be. And it's been going on for such a long time. And nobody has the right to manipulate what I do for a living. Nobody has the right to make that decision. And for it was one thing to try to block somebody in their community, but try to prevent them from doing it anywhere else. It's all wrong. It is all wrong. But these people have done a just unspeakable act, and it is a very serious one. So I'm hoping that I will be taken seriously as a candidate, and I also hope that I don't have to deal with any more intimidating job interviews, because I don't want to deal with it anymore. It's a form of it's trauma-inducing, and I don't want to have to deal with any more trauma. So anyway, I'm going to finish my laundry, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Bye bye.